30 years ago, we never would have imagined being here talking about this. We went from childhood games to energetic alignment. By doing the work, we created better versions of ourselves. Join us, two women sharing their intimate journal entries on their path to consciousness. Get in here, get in here, get in here. If you like our content and you want to hear more, subscribe, like, and comment below.
Get in here, get in here, get in here, y'all. Welcome back. This is our season finale, episode 9. And as you can see, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. So instead of reading our journal entry, we are going to make this a very interactive episode. We've been getting a few questions from you guys, some comments that you've left to us, and we wanted to make this episode a question and answer session. So I hope you like it and it's new for us too. I haven't heard the questions Zakkiya has, so this is off the cuff.
Yeah, and we really wanted to do it to give something back to the listeners because you guys have started asking questions and wanted to know more. So again, this episode is all about you. And again, don't feel like you can't ask us more questions. We do try to respond to every comment, either if it's on YouTube or if you DM us on TikTok or Instagram, if you'd like to keep it private, which a lot of people I realize want to do. So that's totally fine as well. But we will try to address as many as we possibly can.
Yay.
So one question that we kept getting over and over was, who did your ancestral readings for you? And we talk about this a couple of times, and I feel like a couple of episodes about doing an ancestral reading. I talked about doing a mesa. So first, before I answer who did it, because the same person did both of ours, can you tell me a little bit about like an ancestral reading and what you got from it, Akilah?
I did mine after you told me about yours, and the excitement in your voice from yours also made me want to do it, just to learn about my ancestors and what they liked, and kind of tap into giving me a little bit more about who I am. And so that's really why I did it. It was for entertainment purposes only, but, also for educational purposes for me, because I believed in, a lot of what she was saying about my ancestors. These are not things that you can validate. Like, I have, one person in my family who's probably the oldest, the matriarch, but I don't really talk to her as much. So it was like, you just had to really believe, in a lot of what she was saying. And I did. And I got a lot of benefit of it, just learning about my ancestors and just being prideful and proud that, oh my God, my ancestors showed up for me today.
Yeah, no, mine was the same way. Some of the things that she said, I actually could validate because they were ancestors that were living while I was also alive. So there were some things that she was able to say, like, ooh, who is this person showing up? And I'd be like, oh, that's my uncle, or that's my grandmother has always showed up in every reading that I've ever done with a medium, a psychic, anyone. My grandmother, my mother's mother shows up every time. And that's the one that I say that I can usually smell around my house.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after I had kids, I could smell her. So I know that she is here through and through. And I remember my ancestral reading, she told me, when you want to draw your grandmother in near to help you on the spiritual realm, she said she wants fresh baked biscuits and macaroni and cheese. So she was like, and she specifically said she don't want no Pillsbury. She wants you to have she was like, she's showing me the rolling pin. Like, you need to make, and it's so funny because after that, I started making my own bread.
You did.
After that inspiration. So again, the ancestral readings is really to help you decide, or to help you know who shows up for you in the spiritual realm and who you can call on. And I remember, like, after having children, when I was pregnant with them, when they're still in my belly, I spoke a protection spell over them. I didn't, and I wouldn't have called it that then, but I call it now because that's what it was, a protection spell over them. And that's also how I feel about my grandmother, because that's when I first started smelling her scent, was after I had kids. And I was like, oh, okay, you can be with my kids when I can't be with them. You can protect them and look after them. And so that's why it was so important for me to know who shows up for me, so that I know that I can call on them, because I can't be everywhere all the time and I don't know what's happening, but I do believe on a spiritual realm they know. So to say, without further ado, we actually went to a woman that I met through a dear friend who really turned me on to spirituality way back in, like, she was the first one that told me about The Secret and the Abundance book that really like opened my world up to this idea. And she told me about her. Her name is Yaya Feeney. She's from North Carolina. She has a website. You can book these ancestral readings. They can be completely virtual. The first one I did, when I did a reading, it was over the phone.
Yeah.
And then when she did the Mesa, it was actually over Zoom. And so all I gave her was my name, I think. And I think we gave our parents' name. I can't
Yes.
remember. I think so. Yeah.
Yes, we
And
did.
then she then starts like singing and calling in
Mhm.
the spirits, and then she just starts reading, and she's telling you whatever she sees. And so I think she was really pivotal for me to learn how to work with my ancestors, how to set up my altar and the things that I needed to do. So like, I love her. I think that you will too. So if you're interested, I'll put her website in the show notes, because I know she does a couple different readings. There's one like a roots reading, ancestral reading. There's one for relationships and a couple of others. So, you pick
Yeah.
what you want, you book it, and then she will call you. So I just found so much benefit to it.
Yeah. It kinda reminded me, like, when I was about to do mine, I love the movie Wakanda, and so it kinda reminded me of when they would go to the ancestral
Absolutely.
plane, right?
Hmm.
And then I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I wanna be there with her," but she was stepping in for me and then, giving me all the information that they were giving her, so I had this vision, like, she was in the jungle, there was trees, and it was so funny, but I was like, "Oh, I wanna be there," and I feel like that's exactly how it goes. I don't know, but I
No,
felt
but
it.
I think that's a good visual though for when we're talking about it, because that's very much
Mhm.
what she do, because when she starts singing, that's her way of calling it in. So it's that same idea where they use the plant or whatever to start
Yeah,
the invocation
yeah.
so that the spirits can come. It is very much like that. It's just,
Mhm.
it just also goes to show you guys that like entertainment can be documentaries of how things are done and like and inspiration. So
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna move to the next question. What was the pivotal moment in your spiritual development? You want to answer this one first?
I'll go first. Loss was the pivotal moment in my
Mm,
spiritual development, after I lost my mother, I felt like I had no one, right? Like,
sure.
I felt so alone, and, with my mother here, I could do all the things. I could act all the ways. I lived a very carefree life because I knew if something hit the fans, my mama got me and she's
Mhm.
going to take care of me. And I never had to worry about anything. But then when that was gone, it was like everything's on me. And I had to make sure that I knew how to do all the things for myself. And for me, that was pretty much knowing who I am, knowing myself and what makes me tick and what makes me quirk and how do I get out of certain situations or how do I make the decision not to get myself into certain situations? It was just being aware that now is the moment where everything's on you, Keela, and you got to be ready. You got two kids to provide for. Like that was it. It was just losing my mother and being able to say, I got this moving forward. Or
Yeah.
do I? It was actually, a very, question, at a curiosity moment. It was a very curiosity moment for me to start this journey.
Yeah. I think for mine, I actually talked about it in our last week, actually, in our authenticity episode, where I
Mm.
said it was a really difficult time in my marriage. I knew that it was time to leave, but I felt stuck. Where I remember we had a really bad fight, and I was sitting on the couch, had things to do. I think my kids were in the basement or somewhere playing, having, totally unaware.
Oblivious.
And I was like, "Oh, Z, you need to get up and do this." And I physically could not get up. I
Mm.
physically could not pull myself off of the couch no matter what I was telling myself, even like trying to physically maneuver myself to get up. I could not get up. And that's when I knew that I was depressed.
Mm.
But again, I knew how to wear a mask outside of my home. I
Right.
knew how to wear a mask in front of my children, in front of my friends, even in front of my family. And at that point, that mask had broken me down. And I was like, something has got to change. And
Oh,
so for me, it was I needed to get out of my marriage. I had found myself in codependent relationships that I needed to tear myself away from. And so it was really that moment that I was like, enough is enough, Zakkiya.
yeah.
Like, the decisions that you have made have put you where you are right now. And you're
Right.
not happy with where you are. So you need to start making new decisions.
That's it.
And so the only thing that I could do in that moment was prayer. I was
Mm.
like, and I called on my ancestors, not even realizing that's what I was doing at this moment, but was like, I need help.
Yeah.
Show me a way out of this. And that really, I think, just asking that question and being like very authentically real and saying, like, I can't do this by myself, really do, I believe, helped usher in the changes that I needed to make personally. Because also, shortly that was 2019. And then
Yeah.
2020, I told you that was the year that I was like, get your shit together, Zakkiya.
That's
And
it.
so that really was the point for me where I was like, I can no longer live like this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's all good now. It was, and I say
It
that 'cause
is.
we talk about doing the work all the time. And I think that people get really nervous because you're like, you've been doing work for years, but I feel like work is, you will
Every
always
time
have,
we got the work.
there will always be work to be done. But the benefits of doing it are so well worth it.
And it's not
Oh my goodness.
hard work, right?
Well, wait, this is a great segue. Wait till you see the next question. I even forgot that it came up this way. So, the great segue into the next question. Spirit, thank you
Okay.
for leading us this way. I'm afraid to do the work. Any suggestions to help me get started? I promise y'all we didn't
Oh.
plan that. We did not plan that at all.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm a big proponent in um being able to be vulnerable because I
Mhm.
had to be vulnerable at the beginning of my journey. I was always one that don't tell me what to do and you're not going to know this. And I just had to let all of my guards down. So, um, thank you for sharing that you were afraid to do the work because I was too.
Mhm.
And I'm sure everybody that kind of, goes through something, they're afraid of the unknown. But that's what we all need to be walking into. But suggestions to help you get started. We've talked a lot this season about things that got us started. For me, it was solfeggio frequencies, just kind of being able to sit silently with myself. It was meditation. Um, it was actually, for me, church.
Mhm.
I started, listening to a lot of sermons that, were resonating with me. And I started having church at home like every
Mhm.
day because
Yeah.
I needed the word. I needed some kind of motivation. Again, I had lost my mother. I needed some motivation to pick me back up. And those were the things that jump started that for me. But it could be different. What did you do?
Um, I think they all, like you said, are all very different. We have given a lot of, I think, different tools and suggestions throughout the season. For me, it was removing distractions
Mhm.
because you have to be able to be quiet. You have
Yeah,
to get quiet with yourself. And in order to do that, you have to remove distractions. So I think the hardest part when you think about doing the work is okay, well, Kendrick Lamar, turn the TV off, turn the TV off. Like,
hey.
turn the TV off, stop doom scrolling.
Yeah,
Anytime that you find yourself alone, instead of turning on the TV, instead of looking for something to entertain yourself, sit with yourself. So if
that's
that's
it.
meditation or if it's journaling, whatever it is, but like take all the distractions off, get quiet, literally quiet your environment. Maybe you want to have like some solfeggio frequencies or some like lo-fi music, something that is like high vibrational that can just play in the background, but you have to be willing to be quiet and be by yourself, because I think that's also really difficult.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up journaling, right? Because it is the theme of our show. Like, we took our very intimate journal entries and
Mhm.
shared it with you guys. That was also a part of my healing. My healing was also sharing and doing this podcast, because I didn't, this was what I was afraid of, like just
Yeah.
opening up and being vulnerable. But writing things down, just getting a journal prompt and then just starting to write. And then you start, for me, it was like, who wrote those words? Where
Mhm.
did that come from? And then you start to tap into a higher spirit. And then you start to talk to that higher spirit. And then you know, create this relationship with yourself. And so
Yeah.
I just saw this evolution and I was like, wow, this is interesting. But definitely journaling helped.
Yeah, and that's what you described as free writing, where you don't have a plan necessarily. In some cases, and you said like you have a journal prompt and you can use that
Yeah.
if you need help to just get started on where to write. I think I talk about it in season one. There was a shadow workbook that I actually
Hmm.
went through that I will also put
Yes.
in the show notes as well. That was very helpful to help me start thinking about where those wounds started that I needed to heal in order so that I could move forward. Pussy prayers was another one because it was about around womb healing, which was really important for me. But what I love about you said with journaling, the free writing is where you literally get out a journal, you take out your pen or your pencil, and you start writing with no plan of what you were writing. Just write and just see
Hmm.
what comes out, but then go back immediately and read it.
Yeah.
And as you're reading it, what did you think? What thoughts came up? Where did that conversation come from? Because that's you starting to have an internal dialogue with yourself and how you call in again what I believe to be spiritual gifts, whether it's you calling in your ancestors or you calling in on and calling in for your own strength and your own stability. Start it however feels organic to you. So if it starts
Yeah.
out with journaling, if it starts out with guided meditation, if it starts out with just sitting in silence, just make sure when you carve out time for yourself. This is not something you do as a group. This is not something you do with your partner. This is something that you have to do with yourself because
Mhm.
only you can heal yourself.
Absolutely. I agree.
All right.
But it's an ongoing process too. So
Well,
we'll
that
give you
part,
more
y'all.
suggestions in every episode as they come up.
Right. The healing never ends, or the growth and the
Does not.
evolution. You don't want it to stop because if you stop, it means you're stagnant. If you're stagnant, it means you're not growing. And so
Yes.
you should expect that, like, no matter how spiritual you and I say we might get, I still get triggered by little
Oh,
things where I'm like, I am still like really annoyed by this. And so that's something I need to work on. So again,
we were talking the other day, and remember, I was like, they about to take me back to the 992,000, Zakkiya.
they don't
I'm
want
about to
that.
come out.
They don't
They
want
don't
that
want
either.
that.
Right. And you don't want it either. But again, that shows you, okay, I still got work to
Sometimes.
do. And it's okay. Because but what you
Right.
will see is the evolution and the growth of how something that used to trigger you will no longer trigger you, or a conversation
Yes.
that you used to want to have, you no longer want to have. And you'll see that growth and you'll continue to see it. You become aware of it.
Hmm.
And you'll see those moments where you're like, I'm proud of myself. And when you can
Ooh.
get proud of yourself, that's when like all the glory and all the like fun stuff, the manifestations and the miracles come through.
Yes. Yes. Love it. What's next?
Next question. Oh, wait, we just flying through
I
them.
know. Thank
All
you
right.
guys.
This is a good one. And I think it makes so much sense for what is happening, what we're seeing in our world right now. How do you remain grounded in chaos? Keela, I'm gonna
You
let you go
take
first
that.
on this one.
No, no. You take that one. You take this one.
Okay, I tried to pass it off. Bring it back. Okay, so how do I remain grounded in chaos? And I think this is an excellent example going back to our previous question of you have to learn how to get quiet, right? So when things have happened in my life or in my world that trigger me or make me upset, or I'm seeing things in the environment, I have to remember, what can I control in this situation?
That's it.
And the only thing that I can ever control is myself.
Mhm.
So if I feel overwhelmed, if I feel triggered, if I feel upset, if I'm pissed, if I'm mad, whatever it is, whatever emotion is that I'm having or that I'm feeling that I don't want to experience, I sit with it.
Mhm.
In some cases, I will journal it out. I'll just journal whatever it is I'm feeling, whatever it is I'm thinking, or I will sit and I'll have like some high vibrational music in my earbuds, sometimes even in the dark, or maybe I'll have a little incense burning. But the point is I get quiet with the feeling. What is making me feel like this? What's the root cause of it? So may have been the trigger, but that probably isn't the root. So I need to sit down and I'm going to ask myself, like, Z, why were you so annoyed? Because this happened recently. When I called you and I was like, I am so annoyed. And I'm like, why am I so annoyed by this? I thought
Right.
I had like evolved from this. And clearly
This
I
ain't me.
wasn't. So it's like I had to sit, one, give yourself grace, because the
That's
outside
it.
factors and the things that are happening, you very well will be triggered. You will get upset. Like, that's life. That is being a human being.
Right.
But get quiet. Figure out what it is and how you can respond differently.
I love that answer, but I'm gonna take it to the opposite end because sometimes you can't in that moment be quiet, right?
Well,
Like
not in the
I
moment. Yes.
yeah, I was at a birthday party not too long ago. And we're at the, dinner table and we're talking and obviously everybody wants to start talking about current events. Now, I don't watch the news, y'all, so I cannot
You don't.
partake in this conversation. But I can also, encourage you to continue having this conversation that you want to have. But I'm also going to start to ask questions a little bit differently. And
Mhm.
and like you said, based on, this topic that you want to discuss about the president or about DEI or, all the things that are triggering you, you know, what are you going to do? How did that like affect you? And I'm asking the questions to kind of for them to go deep. So in a lot of moments where you have those chaotic conversations, because that's what I think they are,
Mhm.
when we're talking about what the president is doing, that's chaos, that's distraction because he gonna do what he want to do, y'all, and just let him be. But for me, it was like I don't really understand all this that y'all are talking about, but I just it allows you to divert the conversation into a more practical deep dive into us as people. Well, how do we come together? And like you say, I can give all the suggestions. Get quiet, do meditation. So, have you listened to solfeggio frequencies? Like you can start to give them those suggestions, but I think sometimes you just got to ride with it. But also, don't take it with you, right? Like
Mm.
we were at the dinner table for an hour discussing all these things, and then it's time to move on to something else, and I'm no longer thinking about that conversation that we had at the table, about the things that were distracting you. I don't take any of that with me, and I think that's probably because I've done the work on myself to listen and not judge, but
Mhm.
also to roll that shit right off my back. This does not affect me.
Well, but you bring up a good point, because when we are sitting and having those conversations, most people are taking those back. And so they're
Right.
leaving that dinner table and then they're getting on their phone with their girlfriend on their way home being like, "Girl, did you hear what Mr. President did? Did
The
you hear
loop.
this?" And so again, you are continuing that same loop. But even though
Yeah.
you said it differently, you still said the same thing, because you said to pivot. What is it
Mm.
that you can do about this?
That's right. Yeah.
What is it about you that, why are you so upset about this? So it still is this idea of like, guys, the work is still personal. It's still one-on-one. It is still with you. And we are going to be in situations where you cannot control the
Yeah.
conversations that are having, or the entertainment, or the things that are around you.
Hmm.
I always have this thing, the minute that I hear people start talking, and it happens oftentimes when we're at work, when something has happened in society, and then we get on Monday, we're on a call, and then people are like, whoa, 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 and this and this and this. In my head, I start humming,
Mm.
because it's my way of blocking out all the negativity that they are now like
I
spewing,
like
that they
that.
want me to co-commiserate in, which I am not going to do. I'm not going to sit in it.
Yeah.
And it is your responsibility to decide how you're going to respond to chaos and then what you're going to
Yes,
do moving forward from it.
that's it. That's a good one.
Next question.
Yeah, I like that one though.
They are really good questions, and I think a lot of people would ask them just based on their own spiritual journey and where they are.
Hmm.
Now, this one can be deep and can go so many ways, but what does meaning of life mean to you?
The meaning of life. I'm going to go back to our episode of priorities,
Mm,
um, because I think that one kind of hit on this question, and maybe that's where they got it from. Because in that episode, we talked about, what are the things that matter to us the most? And so when I think of meaning of life, that's what I think of. What matters to me the most?
mhm,
What are the things that I want to fulfill in this lifetime? What are some of the karmic balances that I need to
mhm,
fulfill in this lifetime? Um, the meaning of life is so many, it's so many things. It can be so many things, but it also can be what you put your attention to.
mhm,
Um, and if that thing that you're putting your attention to kind of guides you down a path of excitement, of joy, of curiosity, then you know you're on the right path. And then you know the feeling of the opposite too. And if the things that you're doing doesn't give you any fulfillment, then you have to know to pivot quickly, people. Like, don't sit in it. But I think it really is priorities.
Yeah. No, I think you actually answered that perfectly because I would have said much of the same thing. I think, the meaning of life is finding out what your dharma is, which is your purpose. What
Mhm.
is your purpose in this life? And in order to do that, in order to find that, everything that we have said in the questions previous to this, it's the same idea. You got to find out who you are. You got to get quiet. You got
Yeah.
to do the work so that you can find your purpose. Because when you can walk and live in your purpose, life is easier.
Yes.
It is much easier because you're doing what you are meant to do. You are not doing what everybody else is doing or what you think you need to be doing. You are doing what you're supposed to be doing on a soul level, the very reason that you were put on this earth. I think we all
Yes.
came here with a reason. Part of it is to the lessons that we're supposed to learn so that we can find what our dharma is and what our purpose is in this life. But to get there, y'all, the meaning of life, do the work. Unfortunately, I wish I had another answer because that's always do the work, y'all. Do the work.
Oh Lord, they gonna say we so sick and tired of her.
You can be sick and tired of me all you want, but if you ready to live that life that's full of manifestations and all the things that you
Yes.
hope and dream for yourself, the way
No.
to get there is one, do the work, do your healing work, heal. You guys, you have to heal because otherwise, the chaos of the world, the triggers are going to stop you from being able to really live your full life. I'm not going to say that you won't enjoy your life because you can still enjoy your life without doing what you're meant to be doing. But I think when you are doing what you're meant to be doing, and part of it for me, I feel like is this podcast, this no longer feels like work. This is fun for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, it has
I
become
enjoy
fun.
doing it. I look forward to doing it. And like learning how to edit a podcast, that wasn't on my list of things to do, but I did it. And what felt like cumbersome in the beginning, I now actually look forward to doing. Setting up a
Mhm.
YouTube, all these things. Like what some people would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I
Right.
realize this is part of my calling.
That's
So it
it.
doesn't feel like work.
That's true. And it's fun and exciting. So
Mhm.
that's the meaning of my life, a fun and exciting, fulfilling life.
A life that I don't need a vacation from. That is my
Ooh,
goal. A life
because
that I
I'm
do
always
not
on
need a
vacation.
vacation from. And I
That's
also want
it.
to get paid to
To
exist. I just want to
exist.
get paid to live. That's all. That's it, y'all. That's it. If I'm doing that,
Yes.
I'm living a dream. Which takes us to our next question. How does your spirituality influence your interactions with others? Which I
Mm,
kind of feel like we have talked about. We definitely talked about it with some of these questions previously, but also last week we talked about this a lot with authenticity of like, how do you show up as yourself around other
yes.
people? So you want to
Yeah.
answer or you want me?
Um, you can take this one. I'll let you take this one first.
So I think, And when we talked about authenticity and we talked about, you're right, we talked about in priorities as well. When you show up as your authentic self, you give permission for others to do the same. But what you also do is you give other people will almost stop and think about the things that they're about to say to you because they know that you are vibrating at a certain level. And if they listen to this podcast, which is what happens to the people that are closest to us, they're like, well, I can't really take this drama to Zakkiya. So without me even having to do anything, my influence of being authentically myself has changed the way they interact with me.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not even all I have to do is show up and be myself, and people will respond accordingly.
Yeah. And I think for us, like, this journey together has influenced each of us to make each other accountable
Mhm.
for the path that we've chosen to take and the
Yeah,
podcast that we've chosen to start and share with other people, like being accountable and make sure we have our journal entries done at this time. Like, did you do yours? Did you do, like, I think you should do yours right now because you're on fire, girl. Like, we've had those type of conversations, and we've influenced each other so much. But I
yeah.
also talked about, you know my friends around me, they talk differently now to me. They just, they share their dreams with me. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was about to take me, back to the 2000. She was about to take me back, and she had to stop and say, "Get in here, Keela." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Whew,
She
let me
brought you
calm
back.
down." She brought me back. And so that's the evolution of this podcast, and the evolution of myself is to take a moment, breathe, listen, and pivot, and not be so triggered, or by other things or whatever. So I feel like my friends circle and my family, they're so proud of me, and they want to see me continue to do what I'm doing because like my sister shared with you, they see a difference in me. And so
Mhm.
when people start to see a difference in you, they also start to act differently because they like the person that they see in front of them, and they're like, "Oh, okay, if this is working for her, I've known her for a very long time. I feel like we connected. We're somewhat of the same person. I probably can have that same interaction with myself." And so you just inspire others to want to do better
Yeah, no,
or be
absolutely.
a
That's a
better
great
version of
answer.
themselves.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
All right, we only have one more question.
Ooh.
Mhm. And this one is just in general about spirituality, but what are some common misconceptions about your spirituality?
Mm. I'll start with this one.
Yeah, I was gonna let you have it.
Because, but you know what? I'm starting first because I feel like what I'm about to say, you probably thinking too. So
Okay, let's
I'm
see.
like,
Let's
let
see.
me go ahead and get my answer
Telepathy.
out
Go
the
ahead.
way.
I'm gonna send you what I think I'm gonna say, and you tell me what you gonna say.
The misconceptions about our spirituality, when we go back to this season of topics, we came into this season saying we wanted it to be this mysticism, this quirkiness. We wanted to get out in front of a lot of things that we feel you guys may think as weird or outlandish. And so I think that's a big misconception about spirituality because we, like wizardry or because we believe in magic. Because we talk about aliens, right? You're like, a lot of people think that spirituality stuff that they're on, that's not me. Um, but I think it is you. I think it is everybody. We all, get to decide the things that we kind of take on, whether it's the news or whether it's just a book or something of interest, a documentary or nature, you know so many things that I think spirituality is. It's not just, belief in God. It's just the belief in yourself.
Yeah.
Um and all of those quirks about you. And it's really not a misconception. It's just humanness.
Yeah. No, my answer was definitely similar to what you're saying. But while you were talking, it made me think like spirituality is something that I think sometimes people in religion have a hard time accepting because it feels like
Mhm.
witchcraft or it feels like voodoo or santeria or all these other things that people have told her like, oh, stay away from that. And I don't think that is what it is at all. I think spirituality is a relationship with your God, a one on one personal relationship with your God. But what you have not been exposed to, you will not understand. And so, as you were talking, I don't know where this thought came from, but it reminded me of so I grew up in North Carolina, but my mom's family was from New Jersey. And so every summer I would leave North Carolina and come up to New Jersey. And I remember the kids, when I would go to summer camp or whatever, would be like, "You're from North Carolina? Do you live on a farm?" And I'm like, "No." But they didn't know because they had only had an idea of maybe what they had seen on TV or heard about the South.
Right.
So what they had not been exposed to, they just assumed to be. So I think, when you see these like examples of spirituality, but it's rooted in witchcraft or wizardry or things that don't feel natural, people are
Mhm.
naturally going to kind of just be like, I don't know about that. But I believe spirituality is your one on one connection with a higher power.
Yes.
And that, I think that's it. That's all it is. Spirituality is your ability to tap into something bigger than yourself. You are, I mean, I always say this, and some people may find this offensive, but I am God in human form.
Mhm.
This is one of my
Yeah.
favorite affirmations to write. And I think because I believe everybody else is also God in human form. And when I can look at someone like that, it helps me change how I respond to in those triggers. I'll be like, okay, this is still God in human form. They're having a moment. I just have to remember that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, I believe spirituality is your one-on-one connection with a higher power, whatever you call that higher power. It's your one-on-one connection. So you get to call it whatever you want it and name it how you see fit. But it is when you can get true to who you are, you understand that there's more to this world and that there are more people or more things working within this universe to make your reality a reality. And so
Right.
when you know how to work with it and be in concert with it, you can create the life of your dreams.
Oh, I love that.
So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to season 2 of Get In Here. We hope you've enjoyed it. Just because we are no longer releasing new episodes does not mean that we don't continue to answer your questions or go through the comments and such. If there's something that you want us to talk about in season 3, because we have not planned it out yet, we will be filming again just as spring starts. So please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. We could not do
Yes.
this without you, and we love you guys.
Thank you. Bye,
Peace.
guys.
Until next time, get in here, get in here, get in here.